Carlsbad, People, Purpose, and Impact, an essential podcast for those who live, work, visit, and play in Carlsbad.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Brett Schanzenbach. I'm the president and CEO of the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, and I'm your host today. And I'm very pleased to have with me Lynn Privett. She is the CEO of Mindset Service. Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning, Brett. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining me this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here, especially on this 100th year.
Yes, our centennial year. I know it's like everything we do this year is extra special, you know? It's got that special sauce going. As it should. And speaking of special sauce, you have some really special stuff that you do with your business and everything that you do. And before we dive in and get into all of that, tell us a little bit about your background before you started Mindset Service and you know, the journey. I know there were some interesting pieces of the journey that got you to this point. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly enough, a lot of times in life, we end up places that we never thought we'd be.
Yes, for sure.
Really didn't see this being my profession. I didn't even know that this was a career. I found myself in a negative manifestation loop. I had a lot of physical ailments that kept happening. I had some stuff, my endocrine system shut down at like 33 years old. And I fell and broke my skull. And so I had a head fracture that I was dealing with. I had to be put on brain rest. And it was a long time recovering, and I thought I'd healed. I had young kids, so I tried to get back into my routine and taking care of the kiddos. And about 5 years later, I just wasn't feeling right. I kind of was off a little bit, and I was passing out a lot. And it was just kind of like a weird thing to be randomly losing consciousness. So I ended up going and having a 3D x-ray done, and I had a bacterial infection that was eating my jawbone away.
Oh, my.
When I had fallen and broken my skull, I fell so hard that I cracked 2 of my teeth in the back. And I didn't know about it because they were like a hairline fracture. So that kind of caused some internal stuff that was happening inside of my body. And come to find out, my body was sending me some messages that I needed to heal myself, and I needed to kind of change the course of my trajectory of my path, so to speak. So I came to find out that it took about 13 surgeries to heal all of that. I had to have bone grafts and had to have a sinus lift, and they did a lot of invasive stuff, but it was very painful and a long process. It took several years, and at the very end of that process, I fell and broke my ankle in 4 places. I was just like, what is going on here? That was right when COVID hit. I lost $100,000 in 3 days. I had a vacation rental that everyone canceled out of here on the beach here in Carlsbad. And then I ended up separating from my husband, and just was a lot of things kind of spiraling at the time. Kind of an opportunity to gather up the pieces and rebuild from scratch, and kind of rebuild it the way I felt like it needed to be built, operating with my heart and really allowing my intuition to guide me to feel where I wanted to go. And that's when I found this process. I actually went to like a women's retreat in the San Diego Bay. My mentor, Jenny Harkle-Road, was throwing this event. I thought, oh, well, they're sailing at the end. That could be great just on itself. Yeah. I love going over to the Bay. It's so beautiful here in San Diego.
It is.
So I got to go to this event, and it changed my life. The moment that I did it, I was like, wow, we can feel differently. We can change the way that we feel. I didn't know. I mean, obviously, we know we can change the way that we think, but I didn't really realize that humans are the only species that can change the way that we feel. We can consciously make the decision to change and feel better. And when I really realized the science behind everything that I did and experienced it firsthand, I was like, everybody needs to know about this.
Yes, that's great. So, yeah, that's scary. I mean, you were going through a lot of things, and like having some of those things beneath the surface you didn't even know were there, and yet they're manifesting in ways like passing out, or just, I mean, that's just scary to have to kind of navigate and figure out. But it led you to a new beginning, a fresh start with Mindset Service. So why don't we tell everybody what Mindset Service is and what it does and what you do with it, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Oh my gosh, I get so excited talking about what I do. Absolutely love this process. So, Mindset Service utilizes a science based process called Summit Transformation. Summit Transformation guides you energetically to find what's holding you back, and we release those hidden emotional blocks, and then we reprogram yourself for success. So, it's kind of like updating your cell phone. Who wouldn't go like a year without updating their cell phone?
Right.
We're updating them periodically, right? But the same could be true with our minds. We can update our mind. The programs that we're running quite oftentimes are coming from those first 7 years of our life. And none of us are walking around with a cell phone from when we were 7 without running an app update. So it's a kind of a similar process. We don't want to be working off of things that were put into our mind when we were a kid, and we were kind of a product of our environment at that time. We weren't really the one controlling our destiny, and now we can really become a co-creator of our life and take the reins and the power back and decide how we want to feel in things. So that's what I do. I get to train businesses, men, women, teens, couples. Really, everyone can benefit from this process. There's no one that couldn't benefit, except for if someone's not really willing to feel better or to invest in themselves.
That's so interesting and fascinating, and I think your analogy is very apropos to the devices we use and how we want to keep them technologically updated and things like that. So you talk about how you are a subconscious reprogramming expert. So talk about what that means a little bit.
So a lot of times people don't realize that we're being controlled by our subconscious mind. We just think that we're in control and we're getting up, making our coffee and doing our things. We think that we're running most of our life by our conscious mind. And our conscious mind is actually only operating us 5% of the time. So what we think we're doing is oftentimes being run out of something different. So back to the cell phone analogy, when we update those apps, that's a great thing. You're picking one thing to update at a time. But what we don't realize are when we use our phone, most of the time we're just looking at the screen. But just like a cell phone, our subconscious mind is like the programs and the parts that are actually running the phone.
Running in the background.
Yeah, that actually keep that phone running. So the subconscious mind is running us 95% of the time. So that's like the code that's running our cell phone. And if our code is faulty, an app doesn't work or something doesn't work on our phone. And if someone told you something when you were younger, like, oh, you'll never amount to anything, or you're never going to be successful in life, or you're overweight, those programs, even though we consciously don't want to believe that, our subconscious mind is 95%, so that's going to override that 5% of what we believe. And in the background, it can affect our mental narrative, how we talk to ourselves, how we think about ourselves, our confidence. So when you can go in there and edit the way that we think and feel, then it opens up this infinite well of possibilities within ourselves that it was always there inside of us. We just didn't get to release it because it was kind of trapped by that negative perception.
I love that. You talk about how you help people build new neurological pathways to think, feel, and act in a more positive manner. So I think going back to what you said about that, that 7-year-old who had something ingrained in them, which we all do. We all have things from our childhood that we've taken on, whether we know it or not. We've taken on things. And so you help people build new neurological pathways. And I think, to me, that comes back to kind of the science you were talking about. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, so first of all, why is it important to build a new neurological pathway is because if I love to use the analogy of anxiety, because anxiety is something a lot of people deal with. If someone's had anxiety their whole life, maybe it started when they were younger, they don't know why, they wished it wasn't there, they would like to not feel that way, but they've always felt the anxiety just kind of in the background. So there might not actually be a place in their brain for the opposite to exist. If they've always felt anxiety, sometimes we'll have to ask that person, what is the opposite of anxiety? And then that's where we find the pathway to build that new neurological pathway. So we use their own words to find what it is that they would want to feel. So I'll ask you, Brett, what's the opposite of anxiety to you?
The opposite of anxiety. peace. I would say feeling a sense of whole, feeling a sense of accomplishment. I mean, those are some things that come to mind.
Yeah. So then what we would do is we would write that into a nice little statement. And then I'd use kinesiology, which is a form of muscle testing, which is a really neat process because we get to, everybody has energy in their body. We're all energetic beings. And we have this ability to tap into that energy and get yes or no responses from your body. So what we want to do is find what you don't believe. And then we're going to actually do the little science-based process that I teach. Your energy will guide me each step of the way. And then it feels a little bit like a guided meditation. There's different routes to take. Sometimes we use different forms of repetition and reprogramming. So the energy will guide me down whether you're ready to go right into balancing your hemispheres. Then if that happens, then we really open up that brain bridge and get your left and right hemispheres to communicate to each other. So you're really getting your whole brain accessed. Sometimes you need a little bit different repatterning. So your energy guides me each step of the way. I just kind of facilitate the process and am kind of like a Sherpa. I help you tap into that energy because we want to change that weak response into a strong response. So it happens very quickly. By the end of one 90-minute session, we build 3 to 4 new neurological pathways that'll stay with you for the rest of your life.
That's fascinating. So we're going to take a quick pause. We're talking to Lynn Privett from Mindset Service. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of her other services and things that she's involved in. So stick with us. We'll take a pause to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. So Crystal, before we took a break, we were talking about the building of the new neurological pathways. There was something on your website that I saw that I really liked, and it said, watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become character. Watch your character, because that determines your destiny. That was a very interesting, and I think it gets to the root of what your goal is with people. But talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so sometimes it starts with the way that we talk to ourselves internally. We have 2 ways of learning, and we can learn from someone who's being gentle and kind, or we can learn from someone who's kind of yelling at us. And I think if any of us go back to our elementary years where we had like a more of an aggressive type of a teacher or more of the nurturing type of teacher, I think that we forget that that's how we talk to ourselves inside sometimes too. We can be the kindest person to the person behind us in the grocery store, and we never met him before. We're wishing him the best of luck in life, and then we turn around and we're saying mean and aggressive things to ourselves in our mind and not even realizing it. So I think that's where the first step comes, is identifying how we're speaking to ourselves and the mental narrative, and then finding those limiting beliefs that we're telling ourselves. A lot of times I'll tell people to track their triggers, to write down the things that are really triggering them, because there's a treasure there. Those triggers are treasures because they're teaching us the unhealed aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we're jealous because someone got a new car, maybe we want a new car. And maybe we see someone lost some weight and we're feeling a little envious of that. Maybe we need to focus on our health. The things that are bothering us are really parts of ourselves that need to be integrated.
Yeah, interesting. Very fascinating. And so you work with, and you mentioned this a little bit, but you work with individuals, with couples, with families, but also with corporations. You've trained folks at Microsoft and others. So talk a little bit about that, like how that works in like a corporate setting and how that could work for some of our listening audience.
Yeah, actually, Microsoft just invited me back. I'll be back there in a couple more weeks. And
Yeah.
It was really a wonderful experience because I got to go and I trained the entire Xbox division of Microsoft.
Nice.
It was 109 people at once.
Wow.
And yeah, we did it virtually. And what we did is we went in and it kind of explained the subconscious mind And then we gave them some tips and tricks. And then we actually did one of the balances where we balanced their hemispheres and built the new neurological pathways. And, with people
between the right and left brain.
Yeah. So people in sales, it's very high demanding.
Yes.
You have a lot of pressure. And then once you get to your sales goal, if you don't make it, then you kind of feel bad. And if you do make it, then they increase it.
Exactly.
So either way, the pressure is on.
Yes, exactly true.
But I like to tell people, we can be born from the pressure or we can break from it. And I truly believe we should all be born from the things in life. And with Microsoft, it was so beautiful because I presented to them. It was almost a year ago. And I just had another division reach out to me. Someone was on the call that had just joined Microsoft, but now she's in a different role, and she's been there for a year now. And she loved the presentation so much, she had taken a screenshot of it and kept it on her computer for the entire year. It was like her desktop screensaver. So I thought that was awfully sweet that it made that much of an impact on her. So now I'm going to go back and train another division, another group of the same company.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's a pretty big group to do 109 people at one time. And kudos to you doing it virtually. That's not easy. But I'm assuming you could work with companies of various sizes, 50, 20, 10, all kinds.
Absolutely. I prefer to do it in person because I love the energy of being around the people, and I love what I do. I get this infectious glow about me. My nerdy side gets super excited to explain, how powerful people are. Sometimes we get, life can be stressful. There's a lot of anxiety, but sometimes we forget how powerful we are and how much abundance we can tap into. And when we remember how divine we are, we're here to shine. We're here to live our greatest life.
Yes.
And some of those other things that were holding us back, they're kind of an illusion. We don't want to feed into those things that are holding us back.
Oh, that's great. I also saw on your website, and this looks like it might be relatively new, but I'm not sure. So I wanted to ask, but it looks like you might have some online courses now too?
Yeah, my online courses are just getting ready to roll out. I created a course that works on 12 different aspects of life. And if anyone wants to go to my website, they can print out the free downloadable sheet that goes with it. But I have a scale of resonance, and it's called the cycle of consciousness.
Yes, I saw that, the cycle of consciousness.
And what it is it's a little chart that you can go through and identify where your emotional resonance is in 12 different aspects of life. So the online course is like the cycle of consciousness. We go into all the different aspects: health, relationships, finances, career, your home environment, all things that create who we are. And so these 12 areas that I really identified that really complete who we are, we can go in and reprogram each of those areas. So you'll go into the health aspect and identify something that you'd like to upgrade in your current health. And then you can go follow along and create in your own words how you'd rather feel. And then I guide you through, and on your own pace at your own home, you can follow the process and upgrade. And the cool thing about the course is it's endless. You can actually keep doing it over and over because you can just create a different goal and then try it with a different process. So the level of what I do is it gets a little more intricate as we get higher. So there's different levels. If you're ready to go in and you have an emotional block that's ready to process right away, then you'll go in with a balance. And then if you need some clarification on why you feel a certain way, then we'll go a different direction. That means that you'll have a question, and then that question will illuminate what's blocking you. And then there's these bigger balances that we do that are kind of like with the cell phone analogy. Instead of updating one app, it's like doing a hard reset.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to work your way into that one. So the online course, you work into that. Just like with individual courses, I never start anyone out with the advanced stuff where their mind might explode. But we want people to feel safe and comfortable and non-judgmental. It's very important for the people that I work with to know that we should never judge a program. It's not their fault that they feel a certain way. Oftentimes it's something that someone said to them that stuck into them, like a childhood bully, a parent, a sibling.
Right.
It's someone else's thoughts that are stuck inside of them. That's why it doesn't feel like them. And then oftentimes afterwards, they're like, oh, I feel more like myself again, or I feel normal, or I forgot what I felt like to feel happy. And so when we get to feel like ourselves, there's this return to wholeness, and it does feel good. Ultimately, the goal is to achieve harmony in life.
Yes, for sure. One of the things that's fun about podcasts is we really don't, the listening audience could be far and wide, could be all over this great country and even internationally. So somebody who wanted to come and check out your materials, maybe try your online course, why don't you share your website for them?
My website is mindsetservice.com.
And there you go. So people far and wide can come check it. Well, you're already working with Microsoft, who I'm assuming, I know you did it virtual before, but they're up in Washington. But you can work with companies all over the place, people all over the place, families, couples, etc., which is fantastic. So anything else that we didn't really touch on that you want to make sure we shared with our listeners today?
Ooh, great question. I mean, I think if there's something I could touch on would be, don't ignore your mental health. I think sometimes we can get so busy in our everyday life that, we get focused on what we're doing and what we need to do and our to-do list and our goals, but maybe not stopping and taking the time to think about what's holding us back from those goals or what's creating a plateau in our life. So investing in our mental health is something that should be a priority. I think sometimes people kind of push it off to the side, like, oh, and maybe I like a new phone or maybe I need a new purse. But ultimately, you could maybe buy 10 phones if you spend the time to invest in your mental health. Yeah. I would just say make yourself a priority and don't judge yourself and identify those things that are either triggering you or those limiting beliefs, and take a moment to ask yourself how you'd rather feel or what that is trying to teach you in your life.
That's wonderful. So I love this tagline you have: master your mind and conquer your world. And that's, I think, illuminates everything you shared today. So I encourage people to get in touch with you and check out what you have to offer. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come down and share with us this morning.
Thank you, Brett. Master your mind and conquer the world is not just a tagline, it's a way of life for me. And I appreciate being here with the Chamber. I'm blessed to be part of this Carlsbad community.
Great to have you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on our Carlsbad People, Purpose, and Impact podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please hit the follow button on wherever you get your audio. And please tell a friend. We would love to hear your feedback, which you can share at carlsbadpodcast.com. You can leave us a review, ask a question, or leave an audio comment, which we can play on the show in the future. And that's all we have for today. Can't wait to see you next time on Carlsbad People, Purpose, and Impact. And remember, share some kindness today. It's free, creates goodwill, and makes you feel great.